returning from her shift with her son. She just wanted to get home and celebrate his birthday. Her husband was away on a business trip and no one was supposed to be there. But as she looked up at their apartment building, she saw a light on. In that instant, a chill ran down her spine and her heart began to race. "Mom, you're absolutely freezing. Even your eyelashes are white," Mark said seriously. The snow crunched treacherously under their boots, and the biting winter wind of Chicago tried to slip down the collar of her old winter coat. Danielle, a surgical nurse, had just finished a grueling 2-4-hour shift. 2 emergency surgeries, endless IVs, and the groans of patients. But right now, tightly clutching the highly anticipated box in her hands, she only felt warmth. Today her son was turning 12. "I'm fine, sweetie." She tried to smile, squeezing her son's warm little hand tighter inside her gloves. "How was school?" "I got an A on my English paper and in the science club too. Today we watched a neutralization reaction. It sucks that we can't do the experiments ourselves. They just show them to us," Mark sighed, adjusting his beanie, which had tilted to the side. "I wanted to do it myself." "I'm so proud of you," his mother replied tenderly. Inside her tote bag was the gift she had saved up for penny by penny over the last 6 months. A professional young chemist kit with real reagents and a microscope. "It's a shame Dad won't be here today," the boy said softly, looking at the ground. "Why are his business trips always on my birthday?" Danielle felt a pang in her heart. Ralph had hurriedly grabbed his suitcase the day before and left, claiming an urgent corporate summons. "Your dad works hard, you know that. We have a mortgage and debt to pay off." Danielle lied smoothly, even though deep down she was furious with her husband. They turned down the hallway of their modest apartment complex. The shadows of the winter evening had already swallowed the city, covering it in a deep blue. Suddenly, Mark stopped as if rooted to the floor. He tilted his head, looking up toward the 5th floor. His voice trembled. "What's wrong? If Dad is out of town, who is in our apartment?" The boy raised his gloved arm, pointing at their windows. Danielle followed his gaze and froze. The lights in the kitchen and living room were glaring brightly. Dark silhouettes of strangers were moving behind the glass. Her heart leaped with anxiety. The only people with keys were her. Ralph, who should have been on a plane right now, and her mother, but her mother lived out of state 300 m away, had terrible knees, and showing up unannounced was entirely out of the question. Maybe Dad came back early. Danielle tried to calm herself, but her voice betrayed her. "Maybe it's a surprise. But there's more than one person in there," Mark squinted. Danielle thought rapidly. "Burglars." But they wouldn't turn on all the lights and walked around in a group so calmly. "Mark, listen to me." She crouched in front of her son, looking into his frightened eyes. She pulled her old smartphone from her bag and placed it in his hands. "You stay right here in the lobby. I'm going up to check. If I'm not back down in 10 minutes, call 911 immediately. Do you understand?" "Mom, I'm going with you." "I have to protect you," the boy said, clinging to her sleeve. "No," she said firmly. "You'll do exactly as I said. Please do it for me." Waiting for a hesitant nod from him, Danielle sprinted toward the stairs. The steps felt heavy. Her legs, buzzing from the long shift, felt like jelly. On the 5th floor she stopped. Her apartment door was ajar. Male voices and laughter drifted from inside with trembling hands. Danielle pushed the door open. "Hey, watch out for the credenza. You're scratching the hardwood." An authoritative female voice rang out from the living room. In the hallway were 3 men in dark uniforms and a middle-aged woman in an expensive fur coat. All the furniture had been moved. The contents of their closets were scattered across the floor. "What is going on here?" Danielle exclaimed. Panic swallowed her like an icy wave. "Who are you people? Get out of my apartment right now or I'm calling the police." The men turned around. One of them, a heavy-set man holding a clipboard, took a step forward and looked her up and down with an indifferent gaze. "Daniel O'Connor?" he asked in a bored bureaucratic tone. "What are you doing in my house?" "I'm a sheriff's deputy, last name Perry." He gestured toward the woman in the fur coat. This is the new legal owner of this property, Helen Vance. We are conducting an inventory of assets and executing an eviction process based on a court order. Danielle staggered, gripping the doorframe. The air in her lungs vanished. What court order? What new owner? Are you out of your minds? This is my apartment. I live here with my husband. He's on a business trip right now. The woman in the fur coat sneered in disgust. Ma'am, don't make a scene. Your husband isn't on any business trip. What are you talking about? Danielle whispered, feeling the floor drop out from under her. The deputy opened his clipboard and handed her a stack of papers. Read it. Court-ordered foreclosure. Your ex-husband Ralph took out a massive loan using this property as collateral. Ex-husband. The word cut like a knife. We took out the mortgage together. The apartment is jointly owned. He couldn't do that. He could. The deputy interrupted. Your marriage was dissolved 8 days ago. Here is a copy of the divorce decree. The divorce was finalized in court since you failed to appear at the hearings. And here is a power of attorney signed by you, giving Ralph the right to dispose of your share. Following that, the apartment was transferred to the creditor company to settle the debts and subsequently sold to Miss Vance. I didn't sign anything, Danielle cried. No power of attorney, and I was never served any court papers. This is forgery. Take any complaints to the district attorney's office. The deputy replied coldly. The documents are notarized and on paper. You have no rights here. You have 15 minutes to gather your personal belongings. You're throwing me out on the street in the dead of winter with a child. Today is his birthday. Danielle lunged toward the woman in the coat. I'm calling the police and we're getting to the bottom of this. My husband couldn't have done this. It's a mistake. There's no mistake, honey. The new owner smirked, adjusting her diamond earrings. The police won't help you. The paperwork is ironclad. The fact that your husband outsmarted you is your problem. Be grateful. I'm letting you take your bedding and a toothbrush. Danielle backed away. Her ears were ringing. She went to the bedroom and pulled an old suitcase from the closet. Her hands wouldn't obey her. She swept Mark's sweaters, their important documents, and anything she could grab off the shelves. Tears blurred her vision, falling onto the clothes. Ralph, how could you? Why? As she passed by the kitchen with the suitcase, Danielle accidentally overheard a fragment of the new owner's phone conversation. Yes, everything according to plan. We got her out. She's throwing a fit, of course. Tell Sterling that the mission was accomplished to the letter. Yes, the apartment is vacant for Spencer Sterling. Spencer Sterling. That name hit her like a high-voltage shock. The suitcase slipped from her weakened hands, her head spun, and Danielle had to lean against the wall. Did you say Spencer Sterling? She asked, stepping out into the hallway. The woman in the coat hung up the phone and glared at her. Are you still here? Your time is up, boys. Help the lady out. Two movers grabbed her suitcase and shoved it out into the public hallway. Then they shoved Danielle hard and slammed the door in her face. The new deadbolt clicked. She stood in the hallway, staring at the door behind which lay her entire life. Her home, the secret space under the bedroom baseboard, where she kept her college research journals containing the formula for the cellular regenerative ointment she had never managed to finish. It was all gone. She grabbed the suitcase and ran downstairs. Mark was in the lobby holding the phone with both hands. Seeing his mother with the luggage, he grew pale. What happened? Where's Dad? Why are you crying? Danielle dropped to her knees on the tiled floor, pulled him into her arms and sobbed. It looks like we don't have a home anymore. Mark didn't cry. He just clenched his fists and pressed his cheek against her cold winter coat. Mom will figure it out. Danielle let out a shuddering breath and wiped her tears with her sleeve. We're going to Aunt Chloe's house. She's been my best friend since college. She'll help us. Danielle tried calling Chloe, but she quickly realized her phone had been disconnected. No service. We'll take an Uber and just show up. She dragged the heavy suitcase down the street toward a well-lit intersection. The cold deepened, cutting to the bone. Sitting in the back of the ride-share, She placed Mark by the window and wrapped her own scarf around him. The boy remained silent, staring out into the darkness. Danielle closed her eyes against the hum of the tires, losing herself in painful memories. 13 years ago. The name Spencer Sterling echoed in her inflamed brain. Her college boyfriend, her first love, or so it had seemed at the time. Danielle had been the star of the pharmacology department at the university. Professors predicted a brilliant future for her. She spent days in the labs developing a unique ointment that accelerated tissue regeneration at the cellular level. Then came Spencer Sterling, heir to a pharmaceutical empire. Handsome, used to getting everything with the snap of his fingers. His love was like a gilded cage. "Why do you need those test tubes?" he would say, kissing her neck. "Your job is to look pretty. Accompany me to galas and give me children." Danielle resisted. She tried to defend her research and her formula, but the pressure mounted. And then came that fateful dinner at his parents' massive suburban estate. It all came rushing back with vivid clarity. A huge mahogany table, crystal glasses, sterling silver, and the haughty cold stares of Rose and Victor Sterling. "Spencer tells us you come from a modest family, Danielle," Rose said elegantly, slicing a tiny piece of her sophisticated entree. "Your mother is a public school teacher upstate." Yes, the young woman forced herself to sit up straight. "I got in on a full ride. An academic merit scholarship." "A scholarship?" Victor smirked, swirling the expensive wine in his glass. "Spencer, my boy. Are you sure a girl with such pedestrian aspirations will be able to live up to the Sterling family status?" The main courses were brought out. The server placed a delicate plate in front of her featuring an intricate exotic dish and specialized cutlery. "Go ahead, eat." Rose watched her through half-closed eyes. "Or do you not know which fork to use? Don't worry. I'm sure in your dorm cafeteria they only serve cheap ramen and meatloaf. Just be careful with the silverware. Don't grip it like a farm hand." Spencer was sitting right next to her and simply stayed quiet. He smiled, watching as his parents methodically dismantled Danielle, analyzing her background, her clothes, and her dreams. She stood up, tossing her linen napkin onto the table. "You know what, Rose? The cheap ramen in my dorm is much better than your fancy dish because it isn't seasoned with poison and elitism. Goodbye." She had run out of the mansion in tears under a freezing winter downpour. It was exactly during that difficult period when Spencer was bombarding her with threatening calls that Ralph appeared in her life. He was so different from Spencer, an unassuming economics student. A bit clumsy, shy. He offered her snacks at the student union, listened to her ramble about her ointment formula. And then came the catastrophe. Ralph was accused of stealing expensive equipment from the university lab. Evidence was planted. Everything indicated he would face real jail time, up to 5 years in federal prison. Danielle discovered the truth by accident. Spencer came to see her personally. "Your new boyfriend is going to prison," he hissed, cornering her in the hallway of the science building. "If you don't come back to me, I will destroy anyone who gets close to you." Driven by an acute sense of justice and a youthful savior complex, Danielle made a fatal decision. She broke things off completely with Spencer, dropped out of college, burying her scientific dreams, and sold the only asset she had, a small studio apartment her grandmother had left her. She hired the best defense attorneys for Ralph. She saved him. Ralph was acquitted. The real culprits, bribed by Spencer, were exposed. Danielle married Ralph and went to work as a nurse, firmly believing her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. "Mom, we're here." Mark tugged at her sleeve. Danielle surfaced from her memories. The car pulled up to a quiet suburban neighborhood. She thanked the driver and they stepped out into the freezing night. Chloe's house was a solid brick 2-story behind a white fence. She and her son walked up the driveway while Danielle struggled to roll the suitcase. A warm, cozy light shone from the first-floor windows. Danielle rang the doorbell. Once, twice footsteps approached. The deadbolt clicked, but the door only opened as far as the chain lock would allow. In the gap appeared Chloe's face, perfectly made up, looking a bit fuller than usual. "Chloe, thank God." Danielle exhaled. I'm so sorry to show up unannounced. Ralph took out loans, divorced me behind my back and took off. Mark and I have nowhere to go. Her friend remained silent. Her eyes scanned Danielle's pale face, the freezing boy and the battered suitcase. There was not an ounce of pity in her eyes. I'm not letting you in, her friend said in a flat, strange voice. Danielle's jaw dropped. What? Chloe, you don't understand. It's me. We've been best friends for 15 years. I understand perfectly. Chloe sighed heavily. The thing is, Ralph didn't take off anywhere. He moved in with me. The words hit harder than a physical slap. What? Danielle croaked, refusing to believe it. What do you mean? With you? That's right. We're planning to move out of state in a few days. The tickets are already booked. I'm pregnant with his child. With my husband. Danielle's voice broke into a sob. With your ex-husband. Her former friend corrected. Look, since it's all out in the open, let's just be honest. Your marriage was a sham from day one. What are you talking about? I saved him from going to prison. You're so naive. Chloe smiled cruelly. Do you honestly believe Ralph could pull off that lab heist on his own? Do you think he just magically appeared out of nowhere right when you broke up with Spencer Sterling? Danielle stopped breathing. The puzzle pieces in her head began to snap into an unthinkable, horrifying picture. Ralph was hired by Spencer's parents. Chloe continued mercilessly through the crack in the door. They paid him very well. His mission was to play the victim, drain your finances, get you to drop out of college and marry him. They wanted you permanently away from their precious son. Ralph's job was to keep you on a short leash, controlling your every move so you'd never get close to the Sterling family again. That's a lie. Danielle shook her head. He loved me. We have a son. Ralph was just fulfilling a contract. Chloe stated harshly. He never loved you. You were a burden. He finally managed to shake off. Shut up. Danielle lunged at the door, trying to grab the edge with her fingers. You're lying. But the door slammed shut. The porch light flicked off. She was left in the dark, gasping for air. Mark grabbed her arm abruptly. Let's get out of here. Scary. She looked at her son, her boy, the only real thing in her life. Let's go, sweetheart. Danielle grabbed the suitcase handle. They walked along the edge of a dark suburban road, heading back toward a commercial avenue. There were barely any cars. The wind howled, whipping freezing air into her face. She walked on autopilot, moving her numb legs. Get out of here, her ex-friend's voice echoed in her ears. Suddenly, her memory dragged up another vivid, painful scene. Her college years. Spring break. Spencer, who back then was still trying to show off to his fraternity brothers, had rented out a luxurious, wildly expensive downtown Chicago restaurant for the group. He wanted to flex his wealth. He ordered exclusively exotic dishes, imported seafood, and rare tropical fruits drenched in unrecognizable spices. Danielle had barely eaten anything, feeling completely out of place. But Chloe, the eager best friend, ravenously tried everything. Danny, look. This is literally a dream. Chloe had laughed, popping a piece of some strange exotic fruit into her mouth. When are we ever going to eat like this on our broke college budget? And suddenly the laughter stopped. Chloe began to choke. She clawed at her throat. Her eyes went wide with terror. Her face turned red, then rapidly shifted to blue. What's happening to her? Someone screamed. Allergic reaction. Laryngedema, anaphylactic shock. Danielle realized instantly. She dropped to the floor, laying her friend flat. Call 911 right now. But outside, a massive blizzard had paralyzed downtown traffic. The ambulance was stuck blocks away. Chloe wasn't just choking anymore. She was gasping convulsively, turning blue right before their eyes. Every second counted. She's going to die. Spencer screamed, pale as a ghost. And in that moment, the medical instincts awoke in Danielle, the same savior complex that would later destroy her life. Get me a sharp steak knife and a ballpoint pen now, she ordered with such authority that the waiters scrambled to obey. She disinfected Chloe's neck with the high-proof vodka Spencer had been drinking. She dismantled the pen, leaving only the hollow plastic tube. "Hold her down," she yelled. Right there on the floor of the five-star restaurant, amidst the screaming crowd, a junior pre-med student performed an emergency tracheotomy, inserting the plastic tube and securing an airway. Chloe took a rattling, whistling breath. Danielle had saved her life, and when her friend was discharged from the hospital, instead of thanking her, she cried in front of the mirror and screamed at Danielle. "What did you do? Now I have a hideous scar for the rest of my life. How am I supposed to wear low-cut dresses?" Danielle swallowed the pain back then, deciding it was just the trauma talking, how wrong she had been. Walking now with her son in the freezing cold, she finally grasped the full scope of the nightmare she had been living. Spencer Sterling hadn't forgotten anything, and he had simply waited for the perfect moment to exact his revenge. The wind howled over the empty road. Barely able to breathe, Danielle set the heavy suitcase down on the pavement. Mark stood beside her, his small shoulders shivering under his thin jacket. "Are we going to freeze to death?" he asked quietly, burying his frozen hands in his pockets. "No, we're going to a very good person's house." But first, Danielle unzipped her tote bag with trembling hands. "I'm not letting your birthday end like this." Out on the street in the dark, she pulled out the box wrapped in brightly colored star-patterned paper. The paper had already started to get soggy from the snow, but Danielle carefully brushed the moisture away with her glove. "Happy birthday to my brilliant boy." Her voice wavered as she held out the box. "I think it's what you wanted." Mark looked at the gift suspiciously, then at his mom. He pulled off his glove and carefully touched the colorful paper. "Is it the real chemistry set with a microscope?" "Yes, honey. With real reagents and glass beers, so you can do the experiments yourself, not just watch the teacher." The boy clutched the box to his chest, tears streaming down his face. "Thanks, Mom." He buried his face in her cold shoulder. "It's the best present. Even if we don't have a house, I have you. And now I have my own lab." Danielle hugged her son tight. "We're going to have a home, I promise you. But right now we need to get somewhere warm." She pulled out her phone. The signal was weak, showing just one bar. With numb fingers, she opened the app and requested a ride. "Mom, where are we going?" Mark asked. Once they were settled in the warm backseat of the car that arrived, Danielle hugged her son, helping him thaw out. "Do you remember me telling you about my old pharmacology professor? The one who thought my ointment formula could win an award?" The boy's eyes lit up. "Yeah." Danielle smiled sadly. "Let's just hope he doesn't turn us away." The car pulled up to an older brick apartment building on the outskirts of the city. Danielle paid and they walked up to the third floor. Her heart hammered irregularly as she rang the bell. Shuffling footsteps sounded from inside. The deadbolt turned and a man with wild white hair, a worn-out cardigan, and thick-rimmed glasses appeared in the doorway. He looked at his late-night visitors in shock. "Danielle O'Connor." Professor Arthur Fielding's voice cracked. "Good Lord, you're pale as a ghost. What happened?" "Arthur, I'm so sorry, but I don't think we have anyone else to turn to." Unable to hold it in any longer, Danielle broke down in tears, covering her face with her hands. "We lost our apartment to a scam. My husband left us and saddled us with debt. We literally have nowhere to sleep." "Enough crying. Come inside." The professor decisively grabbed their suitcase and pulled Danielle and the boy into the warm apartment. "I'll put the kettle on. And this young man, I assume, is Mark. The very reason you traded science for diapers." "Good evening, Mr. Fielding," Mark said, carefully cradling his gift box. "Good evening, young man. You look like a proper researcher. Let's all head to the kitchen." Danielle poured the whole story out in a rush, swallowing her sobs. The sheriff's deputies, Ralph's betrayal, and Chloe's cruel rejection. The professor silently brewed a strong pot of mint tea. "So, the husband turned out to be a scoundrel and the best friend a snake," Arthur summarized, placing steaming mugs in front of them. "A classic tragedy. Danielle, you were always far too trusting." "Yes, you were right. What do I do now?" Have no idea. First of all, you sleep. The professor smiled warmly. You can stay here. I have a spare bedroom. My kids are grown and out of the house. But wait, Danielle, did you say today is your son's birthday? She lowered her eyes, guilty. Yes, 12. I didn't even manage to buy a cake. All the money went to his present. Tragus. The older man feigned indignation, clapping his hands together. 12 years old. This is a chemist's first serious milestone. Mark, go wash your hands. We are going to make the greatest cake of your life using my exclusive, highly classified recipe. The boy looked at the professor with enthusiasm and ran to the bathroom. Arthur, you don't have to do this. It's late. Danielle started. No arguing with your academic advisor. He winked at her. He pulled 2 boxes of vanilla wafers, a jar of caramel, a stick of butter, and a bag of pecans from the pantry. When Mark returned, the kitchen became a flurry of activity. Observe closely, colleague. The professor handed Mark a mortar and pestle with a serious expression. This is the homogenization process. Your task is to crush the pecans until we achieve a coarse fraction. Understood. Understood. Mark began eagerly crushing the nuts, and Danielle will handle the binding solution. The butter needs to be soft. We mix it with the caramel. Arthur expertly worked a spatula in a deep glass bowl. Mark, this is essentially creating a polymer matrix. Excellent. Now we take the wafers. They will serve as our structural integrity. We submerge each wafer in warm milk for precisely 1 second so as not to compromise the lattice and stack them in layers. Danielle watched her serious son, who had held back his terrifying tears all night, laughing happily as he stacked the cookies and generously slathered them with a sweet caramel cream. And now the final touch. Arthur sprinkled the crushed pecans and some shaved chocolate over the finished icebox cake. We should leave it in the refrigerator for the binder to crystallize, but we're going to cut a slice right now purely for scientific experimentation. They drank tea with that incredibly simple yet most delicious cake in the world, and Danielle felt the knot of ice inside her slowly begin to melt. Mark, I happened to overhear that you received a chemistry kit. The professor narrowed his eyes mischievously. Yeah, a real one. The boy nodded proudly, pointing at the box. Very good. But you should know I have something a little more serious. Come, let me show you. Arthur led them to a heated glass-enclosed sunroom. Danielle's jaw dropped. The entire space had been converted into a miniature yet fully functional laboratory. A fume hood, racks of test tubes, a centrifuge, an electronic precision scale. "Wow, this is incredible," Mark whispered reverently, staring at the glass speakers. "It is yours, my friend. After retiring from the university, I couldn't abandon science. So I study plant extracts in my spare time. If you like, you can stay here as long as you need. And this entire lab is at your disposal. You can be my lab assistant. Do you accept?" "Accept." Mark threw his arms around the professor's neck, and a visibly moved Arthur patted the boy's head. While they discussed reagents, Danielle stepped into the hallway, took out her phone and tried calling Ralph. It didn't even ring. "The subscriber you have dialed is unavailable." The morning started early. She left her son sleeping under the professor's watchful eye, left a note on the table, and affectionately brewed a pot of coffee. She had to go to work. The surgical ward did not tolerate tardiness. She rushed into the doctor's lounge, tying her scrubs as she walked. "Connor." Finally, the voice of the department head made her jump. "Doctor." Gerald was standing by the window, irritably, flipping through a patient's chart. "Dr. Gerald, I'm on time. The shift just started." Danielle approached the desk. "Which or am I assisting in today?" "No, Akinor, you're not my responsibility today." The boss sighed heavily without looking at her. "You're going to neurosurgery." Danielle stopped. "But I've never worked neuro. I'm a general surgery nurse. They use totally different micro-instruments up there. I'll be a liability to the surgeons." "It's not up for discussion," Gerald replied, raising his voice. "It's a direct order from the chief of medicine, Dr. Evans." "But why me? What do I know about neuro?" she pleaded. "Go to her 4. Dr. Ryan Nolan is waiting for you. He's a new attending surgeon who just transferred here. And listen, don't embarrass my department. Danielle gritted her teeth. Losing her job now when she and Mark were living off the charity of an old professor was equivalent to a death sentence. Understood. I'll do my best. She hurried down the freezing hospital corridors, feeling panic rising in her chest. Neurosurgery. New doctor. Would she be able to keep up? In the scrub room next to the sink, meticulously scrubbing his hands up to the elbows, stood a tall, broad-shouldered man in surgical scrubs. Dark hair peeked out from under his cap. Good morning. Danielle stopped timidly in the doorway. I'm Danielle, the scrub nurse. They sent me up here. The man turned around. He had strikingly calm, piercing brown eyes and sharp, decisive features. Good morning, Danielle. I'm Ryan Nolan. I hope we work well together. To be perfectly honest, I've never assisted on a spinal surgery, Danielle admitted, stepping up to the sink beside him. But generally speaking, I'm a fast learner. That's the most important thing. Ryan smiled faintly. How's the patient? Did you read the chart? Yes, I just grabbed it. Danielle scanned the lines quickly. Oliver Frank, 38 years old. Compression fracture in the lumbar region. High risk of spinal cord damage. Admitted via emergency transport from the equestrian club. Fell off a horse during a race. Ryan frowned, drying his hands with a sterile towel. Everything's in order, but there's a catch. The patient is completely lucid despite the painkillers. Let's head to the ICU. I need to examine him before anesthesia. In the room lay a pale, defeated man. Despite the pain, his eyes burned feverishly. Document. Frank grunted as Ryan and Danielle approached the bed. I'm not going to walk again, am I? You will walk, Frank. I'm going to rebuild your spine. I promise. Ryan leaned over him. But I need to know exactly how you fell. The horse got spooked, stumbled. No, Frank winced in pain. Thunder is a flawless stallion. I've broken him in 100 times. It wasn't an accident. I was riding in a high-stakes private race. Against who? Danielle asked softly, checking his foreline. Spencer Sterling, the patient exhaled. Sterling recently bought the tracks near us. He organizes closed races for his billionaire buddies. I bet my entire business. I had to come in first, but on the final lap. Frank coughed. Danielle froze. That name echoed in the hospital room like a gunshot. And for a second, the world around her shrank into a loud ringing in her ears. Him again. And what happened on the final lap? Ryan watched the patient intently. My head started spinning. Frank whispered like a fog rolled over my eyes. My muscles just gave out. I literally just slipped out of the saddle. But I'm a professional jockey. That doesn't happen to me. Ryan straightened up abruptly. His gaze turned to steel. Danielle, draw a stat comprehensive talk screen from the patient immediately. You think he was poisoned? She whispered. I don't rule out the possibility that someone didn't want our patient to win that race. Ryan nodded. Oh. I'll see you in the O. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Danielle worked like a machine. Her nerves pulled as tight as piano wire. One wrong move and Frank would be paralyzed. But Ryan operated with absolute virtuosity. His hands moved with precision, confidence, without the slightest hesitation. Danielle passed the instrument second by second, as if reading his mind. Between them blossomed that rare professional synchrony that surgeons call breathing as one. Ryan occasionally threw her approving glances over his mask. Excellent work, Danielle, especially for your first time in neuro, Ryan finally said, stepping back from the table as they began to close. When they stepped out into the doctor's lounge, Danielle collapsed exhausted into a chair. Her legs throbbed. Her back ached. He filled 2 cups at the water cooler and handed her one. He's going to walk. The spinal cord was untouched. You saved him, Dr. Nolan. Just Ryan when we're out of the O. He smiled warmly. And where are you from? You don't have a Chicago accent. I'm from a small town upstate about 300 m from here. Danielle took a sip of the cold water, feeling the tension ease a bit. I came to the city for college years ago and never left. What about you? I'm a local, the doctor replied simply. I grew up in the foster system. Had to figure things out on my own. Studied at night. Worked during the day as an orderly. Then an EMT. I know what it's like not to have anyone to lean on. Danielle looked up at him. There was so much sincerity and understanding in his gaze that she suddenly wanted to tell him everything about her husband's betrayal, losing the apartment, and the freezing night on the streets. But she kept quiet. Ryan, how did I end up transferred to your service? Gerald said it was a direct order from the chief of medicine. But it's weird. I'm not a neuron nurse. The doctor's face suddenly turned serious. He set his empty cup aside. I actually thought it was strange myself when I saw the order for your permanent reassignment to my unit. The chief of medicine said it was a specific request from the hospital's biggest board donor, Spencer Sterling. Danielle turned white. He went straight to hospital administration. Do you know him? If you need help with something, you can tell me. Ryan leaned forward, his voice full of concern. Everything's fine. Just an old acquaintance. I need to go. There was a flash of regret in his eyes. Understood. He turned and walked down the hall. Danielle watched him go, feeling a twinge of guilt. It felt like she had pushed away a genuinely good person, but she had no emotional energy left to spare. The commute back to the professor's apartment took almost an hour on the L train. When Danielle unlocked the door with her spare key, she instantly felt the tension hanging in the air. The hallway lights were off. There was no clinking of glass from the sunroom lab. Arthur, Mark, she called out loudly, taking off her winter coat. The kitchen door creaked open. In the doorway stood the professor, gripping a heavy cast iron skillet in his hand like a weapon. Behind him peeked the boy's head. Danielle, thank God. The older man lowered his makeshift weapon. Get inside and throw the deadbolt. What happened? She rushed over to them. Why are you sitting in the dark? They came, Mark said seriously, stepping out from behind the professor. He didn't look scared. He looked fiercely focused. Two thugs in black leather jackets pounded on the door so hard they almost knocked it off its hinges. Arthur's voice shook with suppressed rage. They demanded I open up. They said they were sent by Spencer Sterling and they came to take Mark. Danielle's legs gave out. She slumped onto a bench in the entryway. Spencer knows where we are. Why does he want my son? I didn't open it, the professor said proudly. I yelled through the door that I was calling 911 and the local news. I told them I had security cameras recording everything. They hesitated and left, but they said they'd be back. Fear squeezed her heart in a vice. Spencer transferred her to neurosurgery to keep her under his thumb and then sent goons to abduct her son. Why, Arthur? Can I use your phone? My number is blocked from calling Ralph, but I need to talk to him. The professor handed her his old cell phone, and Danielle dialed her husband's number from memory. It rang for a long time. She was about to hang up when there was a sudden click on the line. Who is this? Ralph's voice drawled lazily. Ralph, she screamed. It's me. Don't hang up. There was a 1-second pause. Then the ex-husband chuckled. Well, found a way to call from an unknown number. What do you want? You're a monster. Tears streamed from her eyes. How could you leave us homeless? Chloe told me you were paid by Spencer's parents. That you were on their payroll from the very beginning. It's true. Chloe's got a big mouth, it seems, Ralph replied indifferently. But it's true. Did you honestly think I lived in that cramped, miserable shoebox with you and put up with your night shifts out of the goodness of my heart? I got paid very well to keep you away from the Sterling family. But why do this now? Because Spencer inherited the estate. His parents retired to Florida, and he has his own plans for you. He holds a massive grudge in case you hadn't noticed. He methodically bought up all my debts and backed me into a corner. He said, I either go to federal prison for fraud or I sign the apartment over to his holding company and disappear. Well, I chose my freedom. Nothing personal. You threw your own son out onto the street. Ah, that's the best part. Ralph's voice dripped with mockery. You know, Danielle, I didn't leave empty-handed. Remember your little hiding spot under the baseboard where you kept your research journals? She went as white as a sheet. What did you do? I pried it open before I left. I took all your notebooks and sold them to Spencer's Pharmaceutical Corporation for a very handsome payout. So say goodbye to your Nobel Prize. Danielle choked on her outrage, her life's work, the obsession of her youth. And why does Spencer want Mark? Why did his men come to take my son today? A sinister silence fell over the line. Then Ralph coughed quietly. Take his son. Danny, you're so naive. Did you ever take math in school? Do you remember the timeline? What are you talking about? Mark is not my son. Ralph's words fell like heavy stones, shattering her reality. Danielle gripped the edge of the kitchen table to keep from collapsing. What are you saying? I never cheated on you. You didn't have to, Ralph laughed. Remember that month you broke up with Spencer and you slept with me out of gratitude for saving me? No, that's a lie. Danielle shook her head. It's true. Spencer always suspected it, but he recently decided to verify it. He bribed the PE coach at Mark's middle school to get some hair from his comb in the locker room. Secret DNA test. 99.9% match. Spencer Sterling is the biological father. The phone nearly slipped from her fingers. My son is Spencer's. And right now, with you being a single homeless mother with zero prospects, any judge in the state will grant full custody to the wealthy, influential biological father. Spencer has a pharma empire, racetracks, and the most expensive lawyers in Chicago. What do you have? The line beeped. The call dropped. Danielle slowly lowered the phone. The kitchen was dead silent, interrupted only by the ticking of the old wall clock. She looked at her son, examining his sharp features, the stubborn arch of his eyebrows and those cold, dark brown eyes. How had she never seen the resemblance before? She lunged toward her son, dropping to her knees, and wrapped her arms around him as if trying to shield him from the entire world. You are mine. I'm not giving you to anyone, Danielle. Arthur gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Go to sleep. Tomorrow is a new day. You need your strength. The next day, the surgical ward was buzzing like an angry beehive. Danielle changed into her scrubs and headed straight to the nurse's station. She had barely checked the pre-op charts when she saw Ryan approaching. Morning. I've got news for you. Good morning. What is it? Danielle looked at him. Hopefully the tox screen results for Frank came back from the independent lab. Remember we pulled blood before he went under? Yes, of course. Ryan checked his surroundings and lowered his voice. We found a long-acting neurotoxin in his blood. That's exactly what caused the severe vertigo and loss of coordination. Frank didn't fall off that horse by accident. Danielle gasped, pressing her hands to her chest. So Frank was racing against Spencer Sterling. If I take these documents to the police, Spencer is finished. Exactly. I'm heading to the chief of medicine right now with the copies. But Ryan never made it to the office. Halfway through the shift, the dry voice of the unit secretary crackled over the PA system. Dr. Ryan Nolan, report to the chief of medicine's office immediately. They exchanged a look and the surgeon silently walked down the hall. Inside Dr. Evans's office, the air was thick. The chief, a heavy-set man with a flushed face, was nervously shuffling through paperwork. You called for me, Dr. Evans? Ryan asked. I did. Come in. The director couldn't meet his eyes. I have a new assignment for you. You are being transferred. Transferred where? The surgeon asked. To a county hospital in a rural municipality downstate. Severe staff shortage. The order is effective immediately. You've got to be kidding me. Ryan placed his hands on the desk. I'm a lead neurosurgeon. I have critical post-op patients on this floor. Frank Oliver, for example, Mr. and Chapped Oliver will be transferred to another attending, Evans said firmly. I'm not going to some rural clinic in the middle of nowhere, Ryan stated decisively. I refuse the transfer. In that case, write your resignation. The director tossed a blank piece of paper and a pen onto the desk. You're fired. Pack up your locker and clear out. For a few seconds, Ryan stared in silence at his sweating boss. Then he smiled, picked up the pen, and wrote his resignation in large letters. "You're going to regret this. You're covering for a criminal." When he walked out into the hallway, Danielle, having heard the news in passing, rushed into Frank's room. The businessman was recovering nicely, though he was still immobilized in bed. "Frank," she leaned in close, lowering her voice. "Something terrible just happened. Dr. Nolan was just fired." "What? Fired?" "He saved my life." The businessman winced. "Listen to me." She leaned closer. "The blood tests Ryan ran proved you were poisoned, and it was Spencer Sterling who did it to win the race." Frank went pale. "I knew it. I knew that snake played dirty. I almost ended up a paraplegic because of him." Just then, her cell phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen flashed Arthur's number. "Hello," she answered, trying to steady her breathing. "Danielle." His voice cracked in panic. "Danny, it's a disaster." "What happened?" "I was walking Mark to school. We were just a block away. And then a black SUV pulled up to the corner. 2 men jumped out, grabbed your son, and dragged him into the truck." Danielle's legs gave out. The world around her went black. "What? How did anyone?" He didn't even have time to scream. They floored it. The license plates were covered in mud. "I'm on my way to the precinct. We have to find him." Danielle hung up, gasping in pure horror. She sprinted out of the room. Gerald was walking toward her. "Connor, where are you going? You have a dressing change in room 3. But Danielle didn't answer, ripping off her scrub cap as she ran. She bolted for the elevator. The doors were just closing when a strong hand caught them and pushed them open. It was Ryan. "I'm going with you. Sorry, but I overheard part of your call. Your volume is turned way up." "No, Ryan. You don't have to. Stay out of this. Dangerous. You already lost your job because of us." Danielle cried, pushing his hands away. "Stop panicking." He grabbed her by the shoulders and gave her a slight shake. "I'm not leaving you alone. I'm staying right here." "Where are we going?" Danielle sobbed, looking into his fiercely determined eyes. "To Spencer Sterling's equestrian club." "He's there." The taxi slammed on the brakes outside the iron gates of the private racetrack. Danielle bolted from the car, Ryan right behind her. Security at the entrance tried to block them, but the doctor with his imposing build simply shoved a guard aside, clearing a path for her. They made it to the main grandstands. Up in the VIP box, lounging in a leather armchair with a cigar clamped between his teeth, sat Spencer Sterling himself. In 13 years he had changed drastically. None of his youthful vigor remained. He had grown heavy, his face puffy and aged. His eyes held a heavy, icy cruelty. "Spencer." Danielle's scream echoed across the empty track. Spencer slowly turned his head. A lazy smirk spread across his lips. He waved off his security guards, signaling them to let her into the box. "Danielle, what a reunion." The billionaire blew out a ring of smoke. "I see you're still pretty, just looking a bit worn out. Life with a loser didn't do you any favors. Where is my son? Where is Mark? You monster." "My son." Spencer raised an eyebrow. "Believe you mean our son. He's not yours. You have no right to him. Give him back right now." Any. Spencer clicked his tongue. "Learn how to lose. Your precious Ralph sold you out. Hook, line, and sinker. And my son is going to live with me in the luxury you could never provide for him. You're never going to see your kid again. Get used to the idea." Her eyes went black with fury. Danielle lunged at Spencer, aiming her fingernails right at his face. "Give me back my son." She didn't even get to touch him. 2 massive bodyguards intercepted her midair, twisting her arms painfully behind her back. Ryan tried to intervene, but was immediately tackled by 3 more men. "Get her out of here," Spencer ordered dismissively. "And don't even think about going to the cops. My lawyers will butcher you. Any judge will give the kid to me. You'll regret it. I'll have you thrown in jail for defamation. Get out." They were dragged out past the gates and thrown onto the asphalt. Danielle fell to her knees, scraping her hands on the pavement. Ryan crawled over and pulled her into a tight embrace, pressing her head to his chest. "Easy, Danny. Breathe. We're going to get him back. I swear to you." He helped her to her feet and guided her to the bus stop. Back at Arthur's apartment, the tension was suffocating. The professor paced the kitchen while Danielle sat staring blankly at the wall. "We need to go to the FBI," Ryan said, pacing the floor. "This is kidnapping." "We have no proof," Danielle said bitterly. "He's right. On paper, he's the biological father. He'll just say he picked his kid up for a visit. Then what? So we just surrender." Ryan went pale. "Let that psychopath ruin your life." Suddenly, Arthur stopped pacing. His eyes gleamed with a strange intensity. "Wait, the police won't help us. Danielle is right. You have to fight Spencer Sterling with his own weapons in a way no lawyer can spin." "And how exactly do we do that?" Ryan asked. 3 years ago, the old man lowered his voice as if afraid of being overheard. "I was doing some independent research experimenting with plant-based alkaloids, and purely by accident, I synthesized a compound. Let's call it a truth serum." Danielle looked up at him in disbelief. "A truth serum, Arthur? That only exists in spy movies. Spy movies are fiction, but chemistry is an exact science." The professor raised a finger proudly. "My compound is completely harmless to the human body. It leaves absolutely no trace in the bloodstream, but it acts directly on the speech centers and the prefrontal cortex of the brain. The subject completely loses control over their inhibitory reactions. They become incredibly talkative and, more importantly, they are literally incapable of lying." "Are you saying?" Ryan stepped closer. "If we dose Spencer with this serum, yes, exactly." The professor beamed. "That's genius." Ryan actually clapped his hands. "But how? How do we get close to him? He has security everywhere. He's not going to take a glass of water from our hands." Danielle buried her face in her hands. "It's impossible. We can't get anywhere near him." 2 agonizing days passed. Danielle didn't sleep, didn't eat, and jumped at every phone notification. On the 3rd day, a text from an unknown number arrived. Photo. Mark was sitting on a pony inside an indoor riding arena. Standing next to him with a smug grin was Spencer. The caption read, "My son is happy with his father. Forget about him." But Danielle, zooming in on the picture with trembling hands, looked at her son's eyes. He sat slumped, staring at the ground. He clearly wasn't happy at all. That afternoon, Danielle stepped out into the courtyard. Arthur had insisted she get some fresh air. She was walking aimlessly when from around the corner a familiar hunched figure skewered toward her. "Danielle, wait." She turned and took a step back. It was Ralph. His overcoat was wrinkled. Beneath his eye was a nasty yellowing bruise. "What do you want?" "Come to deliver the final blow." "Danny, please forgive me." Her ex-husband looked pathetic. "I'm such an idiot." "Don't touch me." Danielle recoiled. "What happened?" "Run out of Spencer's blood money already. Chloe kicked me out. Turns out she's pregnant." "All right, but by some gym trainer, not me. I lost everything." "Danny, let's start over." She looked at this miserable shell of a man she had lived with for so many years and felt nothing but an absolute void. "You are dead to me, Ralph. I don't even hold a grudge anymore. You punished yourself. Go away, Danny." He frantically dug into the inner pocket of his coat. "Listen, I know Spencer took the kid. And I can help. Help. How? I have invitations tomorrow night. Spencer is hosting a private masquerade gala at a luxury downtown hotel, celebrating his inheritance and some new pharmaceutical patents. They gave me these VIP passes last month when I was still part of his inner circle. Take them. They're useless to me now, but security won't let anyone in without them." Danielle stared at the 2 thick gold embossed tickets in her trembling hands. Her heart started to hammer against her ribs. "Give them to me." She snatched the invitations. "But if I ever see your face again, I'll kill you myself." The next day, the professor's apartment turned into a war room. Ryan came back from a costume shop with 2 elegant outfits, a floor-length black evening gown for her, and a sharp tuxedo for him. On the table lay 2 beautiful half-masks, a black cat and a silver wolf. Here it is. Arthur solemnly placed a tiny glass dropper bottle filled with clear liquid on the table. 5 drops, no more. The effects begin in 10 to 15 minutes and last for about an hour. Can you pull this off, Danielle? For my son, I'd do anything. Decisively, she zipped up her dress and secured the mask over her eyes. Ryan, are you ready? Born ready. Phone's fully charged. Camera app is tested. He adjusted his bow tie and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Let's go get your boy. The grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers. A swarm of paparazzi camped outside the entrance. Valets rushed to park imported luxury cars. The security guards at the door barely glanced at the gold invitations. Danielle and Ryan slipped smoothly into the massive, lavishly decorated hall among the hundreds of guests dripping in velvet and feathers. Finding Spencer Sterling was easy. He was holding court right in the center, surrounded by an entourage of sycophants, a champagne flute in his hand. He wasn't wearing a mask. He considered himself above such petty conventions. I'll distract the guards near the pillar, Ryan whispered in her ear. Make your move. Danielle picked a fresh glass of champagne off a passing waiter's tray, palming the tiny dropper bottle. She glided gracefully through the crowd, approaching Spencer from behind. At the perfect moment, one of the guests laughed loudly, and Spencer turned toward them, slightly extending his arm with his glass. 1 second was all it took. Danielle flawlessly squeezed 5 drops into his glass and casually brushed against his shoulder. Oh, my apologies, she purred in an artificially high-pitched voice. Spencer evaluated the figure in the black dress and cat mask with an appreciative once-over. No harm done, sweetheart. Enjoy the party. He raised his glass and downed half of it in one gulp. Danielle melted back into the shadows. She caught Ryan's eye across the room and they waited. 10 minutes passed. 15, Spencer kept laughing and toasting with his guests. He seemed absolutely fine. Didn't work. Danielle whispered in despair, clinging to Ryan's tuxedo sleeve. Arthur made a mistake. We wait. Everyone's metabolism is different, Ryan whispered, keeping his eyes glued to the billionaire. At that exact second, Spencer suddenly stopped mid-sentence. He swayed slightly and rubbed his forehead as if a sudden hot flash had hit him. His eyes took on a bizarre, glassy shine, and a wide, unnatural grin stretched across his face. He abruptly pushed past his colleagues, marched straight up to the stage where the jazz band was playing, and unceremoniously snatched the microphone from the lead singer's hands. The music ground to a halt. The ballroom fell into a confused silence. Ryan held up his phone, hitting record. May I have your attention, please? Spencer's voice echoed through the PA system. He spoke loudly, joyfully, with a manic enthusiasm. I want to propose a toast to myself because I am an absolute genius. Do you people honestly think I just inherited my daddy's empire? Well, I built my success on bones. The crowd murmured uncomfortably. Spencer's security details started moving toward the stage, but he waved them off with an authoritative gesture. Back off. Me speak. He laughed. Oh, if you could see the looks on my competitors' faces. Take Frank Oliver, for example. But the idiot really thought his horse could beat mine. So I just had my guys spike his drink before the race. They did a beautiful job. He dropped off that stallion like a sack of potatoes and I took his money and his racetrack without breaking a sweat. The ballroom gasped in unison. The journalists at the entrance had already pushed their way in. Cameras flashing wildly. Danielle gripped Ryan's hand so hard her knuckles turned white, and my revolutionary new regenerative cell ointment. Do you think my R&D department came up with that? Spencer swayed on his heels, giggling. I stole that formula from my ex-girlfriend. Little Danielle. I paid her loser husband to ruin her life, and then I forced him to steal her research journals right out from under her nose. Ryan, call 911. Danielle whispered. Already on the line, he nodded, holding the phone near his mouth. They're rolling. But the best part, ladies and gentlemen. Spencer threw his arms up in victory, spit flying from his lips. He stole her kill. My guys literally tossed him in a van in the middle of the street, and there's nothing she can do about it. I own this city. The piercing wail of police sirens shattered the silence outside the hotel. Uniformed officers stormed into the ballroom. Nobody move. Spencer Sterling, you are under arrest. The security detail didn't even try to interfere. They knew that after a hot mic confession like that, their boss was finished. Spencer, still grinning blissfully under the effects of the serum, gladly offered his wrists as the handcuffs clicked shut. Where is the boy? Danielle ripped off her mask and sprinted toward the lead detective. My son, please, you have to find him. An hour later, a squad car rushed Danielle and Ryan to the racetrack. The SWAT team breached the door to the second-floor luxury suite, and Danielle bolted inside. Curled up on a massive leather sofa, hugging his knees to his chest, was Mark. When he saw his mother, he couldn't believe his eyes. "Mom!" the boy sobbed, scrambling off the couch and running to her as fast as his legs could carry him. "Mark, my baby." She dropped to the floor, covering his tear-soaked face in kisses. "I'm here. It's over. It's all over." He hadn't even fully processed what was happening. "That man, he told me you abandoned me." "Well." She exhaled a deep, shuddering breath, "and he's going to spend a very long time paying for it." Ryan walked over and gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "And you know what else, buddy? Your mom is the bravest woman in the world." 6 months later, the bright spring sun poured generously into the spacious corner office of the CEO of Okanor Pharmaceuticals. Danielle sat behind a large mahogany desk, reviewing clinical trial reports. She had completely transformed. Her posture radiated confidence. Her tailored business suit fit her perfectly. The fear had entirely vanished from her eyes. The door opened and Arthur walked in. "Danielle, the first batch of our ointment just shipped to the top trauma centers in the country. The patent is bulletproof. We're going to be millionaires." "Yes, it's our shared victory, Arthur." Danielle smiled warmly at the professor. Spencer Sterling's trial had been a national media circus. The video of his spontaneous confession had gone viral across the internet. His investors and powerful friends had abandoned him overnight. Experienced federal prosecutors, using the exact clues Spencer had shouted into the microphone, quickly gathered the physical evidence. The bribed PA coach Ralph's financial paper trail, and the vial containing the toxin that had paralyzed Frank. Spencer was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. His empire crumbled. The family court officially stripped him of all parental rights and issued a permanent restraining order protecting Mark. The stolen journals were confiscated as evidence and subsequently returned to their rightful owner. Frank, fully recovered from his spinal injury, sued and won his racetrack back from Sterling's holding company. He immediately went back to hosting legitimate, honest races. Mom flew into the office wearing a brand new backpack. "I got first place at the state science fair. My little genius." Danielle stood up and hugged her son tightly. That moment the door opened again. Standing in the doorway was Ryan. In his hands, he held a massive bouquet of white roses. "Ryan." Mark ran over happily and gave him a high five. "You got off work early." "I managed to slip away. Being the chief of neurosurgery has its perks." Ryan winked at him. After Spencer's arrest, the hospital administration had reinstated Ryan with a massive public apology and promoted him to department head. Dr. Evans, the corrupt medical director, was fired in disgrace for complicity. Ryan walked up to her desk. "Danny, I booked the tickets." "What tickets?" She raised an eyebrow in surprise. Ryan set the bouquet down and pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "To Hawaii for our honeymoon." "Danielle O'Connor, will you marry me for better or for worse?" she gasped, completely losing her breath. She looked at her son, who was nodding enthusiastically, and at Arthur, who was wiping a tear from his eye. "Yes," she whispered, letting Ryan slip the diamond ring onto her finger. "I will," he kissed her, beaming. Ahead of them lay the ocean, the sun, and a long life where there was no longer any room for lies or fear. The home Danielle had searched for so long had finally been built, and this time it was an unshakable fortress. Thank you for listening. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the story. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. For you, it's a simple click.